Welcome to the bright side of longevity. Join Dr. Roger Landry and guests as they discuss the bright side of getting older through healthy longevity. Guided by research, this lighthearted and educational discussion will leave you with practical tips and ways to impact your lifestyle to brighten life's journey.
Well, welcome everybody. Hello, Danielle.
Good hey, Dr. Roger.
You know what time of year is coming, right? The holidays.
Yeah, I do.
And everybody enjoys themselves, maybe gain a few pounds. And then what? Then it comes, I'm going to not only get this weight off, or I'm going to get healthier, and I'm going to make a New Year's resolution, and I'm going to save the world, lose 50 pounds, and all of those crazy things we do. But some people say, I want to do it, but I can't do it. I know
maybe tomorrow, right?
Yeah, maybe. I failed before. Why exert the energy? So this one is about a new year and a new you, for real this time. Danielle does a lot of coaching. I have in presentations assisted people in sort of committing to a healthier lifestyle, because lifestyle, as you always hear, is very important: physical, intellectual, social, meaning and purpose, peace and fulfillment. And so if we're going to do better with our lifestyle, then we have to be able to manage change and do better. So we're committed to helping, right?
Absolutely.
I'm thinking this is the time of year to do that. So perhaps the logical place to start is, why do people procrastinate? Why do they not make the commitment to be better, even though in their heads they want to? What's going on there?
It's so interesting, because what they think is going on there is not what's going on there. The people will say, oh, I can't get motivated. I always procrastinate, or I don't really care. They'll make excuses, but usually it's self-deprecating. It's something that I am just not the kind of person who XYZ.
It's kind of like a fixed mindset, right?
Quite a bit. But what's going on most of the time under the surface? It's lack of confidence. I failed before. What makes me think, as you mentioned, that I can do it this time? The fear of failure. What if I fail spectacularly? How embarrassing would that be? A lack of support is a big one. No compelling urgency or reason to change. And this is a huge one. People will say, I need to lose weight. Maybe. This is just one example. But they're not going to feel the urgency until the doctor says, if you don't, you are going to die. And that's quite an extreme, but people need to have a really compelling reason for wanting to change.
Yes. Yeah.
They're overwhelmed by where to start. So for example, they have so many goals, and they're all great. And just by thinking about them, it's overwhelming. So they're kind of stagnant, and that kind of gets into some fear. And sometimes it's simply they have too many other priorities in life. They're taking care of kids, they're caregiving, taking care of their parents. There's a million things at work, and maybe they have a side hustle that it's just hard to prioritize what you want for yourself.
A lot of this sounds like it's head stuff.
It's all head stuff. Yes.
Well, maybe other priorities, but maybe how you look at those as more important than what is probably more important: your health and healthy longevity. So this is about these things we've talked about with mindfulness and thoughts out of control, and it generates sometimes emotions and inappropriate behavior, but sometimes it generates no behavior, no response,
which is also a decision. The failure to make a decision is a decision. And as you've pointed out many times, Roger, with your airplane scenario, Take care, put your own oxygen mask on before you help somebody else. So if you're not taking care of you, you're not going to be able to be there for all the other areas of your life.
Sure. That's for sure. So how do you get rid of all this clutter in your head?
I think it would be helpful to talk a little bit about the stages of change so that people understand when they're planning to make a change, where they might be getting stuck in getting started. So I'll turn it over to you, Doc
Yeah,
Roger.
I think you're right. There's been some very hefty research into the whole business of change and making change, and the stages of change is the result of that research that came from the University of Rhode Island many years ago, and it was able to break out, as the title says, stages of change, stages that lead to durable and successful change. And it was mostly developed in order to know what information to give someone who is thinking about change, and because you don't want to give them too much, you overload them. And maybe this is about ourselves too, how much we are wrestling with as far as the subject. So you start with pre-contemplation. That's the first stage. So now you're not even thinking about change, and so that's not intending to take any action. And so it's just like a firewall, procrastination with on steroids. It's just not going to happen, and it's a difficult place. So, but when you start to think, say that maybe I'll make a New Year's resolution, maybe I'll do, that's contemplation. That's the next stage, and that's really what we're talking about here. Someone who's in pre-contemplation, they won't even listen to this podcast. So, contemplation, they will. So, they're intending to take action, fairly soon, now. And now is the time. And then they prepare. That's preparation is the next step. And so they start now thinking, drilling down a little bit. So what exactly do I want? What am I going to do? And getting help on how they should do it, something like this podcast. And then the starting gun goes off, and they're out there taking action again. So they make overt changes and then work at it. And again, if they have all the things that they need, and they understand that they should do it in small steps, as we'll be talking about, then they can be successful. But then, like many things that happen, we maybe make changes, but it doesn't last. So then there's maintenance. So what do you do? And that's a decision, and it's in the plan, and it's very, very specific about whatever you've done that is successful. Now, how do you keep that in your life? The maintenance of it. So that's the stages of change, and that's relative to mostly to people like you and I who are trying to help someone towards change. Okay, so that helps us, helps our listeners, and help all of us think about how change happens, and what we go through. But the specifics of how to make successful change, and how to all the clutters that's going on, and we talked about the procrastination and everything else. That can be difficult to deal with. Do you have any other assistance from your coaching expertise that would help someone sort of get through the clutter in their head and make a commitment?
Yeah. So for me, I would say challenge that idea of failure. So what does failure make you believe about yourself? So if you're being held back because you think I really can't do it, could you adjust kind of the thinking in your head instead to I'm getting closer, I am learning how to make this work, instead of out and out saying I cannot, say I haven't yet. That's
So
one.
it is, as I said, we've talked previously in other ones about fixed and growth mindset. Fixed mindset, you said, I always fail. I can't do that. I'm not good at that. That's a pipe dream for me. Whereas a growth mindset says, even when I fail, that's an opportunity. That's an opportunity for me to try again, smarter knowing what I've learned. It's like Edison. He tried 10,000 times to invent a light bulb and he failed. And someone said, whoa, Tom, you're still doing this. Don't you feel like a failure? He goes, no, I have successfully identified 10,000 ways that do not work.
There is something to doing things that don't work, because then you check it off your list and said, oh, well, that didn't work. Let's try this. And unless you try it, because maybe it will, and maybe it'll be spectacular. And if it doesn't, at least
Well, that's it. So it's a growth mindset that, I can do this. I might fail, but I'll learn from that and then I'll go. And, so I believe that when someone realizes that the real problem in beginning something, committing to something, is them.
Yeah. The
It,
other part to that challenging failure is what's your motivation? It has to be compelling enough for you to prioritize it as a goal, because there will always be something to distract you. And on that note, when I say compelling, I used an example of weight loss or die, and that was, perhaps an extreme, but there's other motivations. What's your motivation? So if somebody else has something they want you to do and they're pressuring you, that has nothing to do with you. What do you want for yourself? And what is the reason for it? It could be, I want to be healthier. You've used the example, Dr. Roger, of an older person who wants to limber up and exercise and stretch so she can get on the floor and play with her grandkids.
Yes, yes. See, that's when you put some real specificity in it. If you just say, I want to be healthier, that probably won't hold up when the going gets tough or you get a little tired or something. But if you say, I want to be around for if you're a little older, my grandson's wedding or the birth of my grandson or my daughter's wedding, or I want to be around for something very specific, or I want to look good for a particular event. Those are the sort of things, specificity. And within that, I think, is the whole idea of supporters. And, I have a story. I was never, I worked out, but, like everybody else, I would get spurts and do well. But the best I ever was when I was living in I was working in Washington, D.C., and just outside, I lived outside, and traffic was always horrendous. So I arranged to meet someone at the gym in Washington at 6 in the morning. So I beat the traffic and he was waiting there for me. So with that motivation, I was very religious. I was very rarely did I ever miss, because I didn't want to let him down. It's much like, we've talked about the military and what makes people do the great and heroic things they do. They don't want to let their others down. So making a commitment to someone is really, they're a supporter of you, aren't they?
Yeah, I have a funny story, if I could share real quick, recently, that ties into the last two things we said. What's your motivation? So I live in Florida where everything's flat, and I just went to Ireland with a few friends, and I had to get on the elliptical, which is a boring activity for me, because I knew, and I'm getting on the treadmill at an incline because I knew I wanted to do some hiking. And my body is used to working out on a flat surface. So that was my compelling motivation. Then when I get there, one of the friends I was traveling with was also like me, wanted to do some hiking. And so whenever the driver would say, this is a really tough climb, just letting you know, my friend Anastasia would say, challenge accepted. And so there was my supporter, like, I'm not getting out of it because we were going to do this hike together. And if we failed, like we got out of breath or something, as long as we could signal somebody to come get us, it was going to work. So we had that dual component of a compelling motivation and then somebody who was there to go through it with me. And that was huge.
I totally agree. Now that I'm older, I mean, before I used to do things so that I'd look lean, look good, be able to compete, that sort of thing. Now that I'm older, and some people say, okay, I don't want to do those things anymore, and they don't. But for me, it's function.
Yeah.
And I was just overseas also, and it's a challenge to travel.
Yeah.
You're up a lot, you're bag dragging, and so it's functionality. I want to be able to, live long, die short. I want to be at very high function as long as possible, not only for travel but just for life. So I mean, whatever motivation, and as specific as you can get, is better, because that's what's going to get you started.
Yeah. And you've got to wrap up with your favorite topic, but we're going to take it a little bit further today. Your favorite solution, Roger.
Yeah.
Masterpiece is driven by data and powered by content. Maximizing healthy longevity is achievable at all times with the right metrics and content, enabling informed decisions. Powered by Masterpiece can support your community in the critical areas of focus that drive healthy longevity for your residents, staff, and community. Learn more at mymasterpieceliving.com. We want to continue to provide information that is valuable and reliable to our listeners. We welcome your comments and suggestions for topics that are important to you. Please see the description of this episode to contact the Brightside team.
So why do we fail? All right. Now, you've heard me say this before, but failure is not you. You're not a slug, a slow leak, those sort of things that we do. We fail because we're too ambitious. We fail because there's a part of our brain that we inherited from our ancestors that when there was big change in their environment, then usually it was life-threatening for our ancestors, be it a storm, weather, attack, predators, famine. When there was big change, it was serious. And we responded with a fear response. And that set up a whole list of priorities as to what was most important for our bodies right now. And those things are not related to success in making change. So it's the amygdala in the brain. And so when you make a change, you commit to a change that's huge, big, you're going to fail. I mean, it almost goes without saying, because we're programmed as humans, not as you. They're programmed as humans, all of us, to be less likely to be successful. So what do? All you do is you don't want that little area in your brain to start firing. The way we overcome this, and because we all want to make large change, is to prevent that area in our brain from firing by making small changes. Small, ridiculously small sometimes. So if you want to, we'll go with the weight thing. That's a big one usually around this time of year. So if you want to lose 30 pounds, that's a big change. That's a huge change. And if that's your goal and that's what you focus on, you're probably not going to make it. And even if you do, you'll probably recidivate. Namely, you'll probably gain that weight back. But if you do it in very small steps, think of 30 pounds as a staircase, okay? And your first goal is that first step. That's the goal. I mean, not 30 pounds. Almost forget that. Your first goal is that first step. And what does that take? You've heard me, some of my patients, they begin to walk in place during TV commercials. Some spit out the first bite of a candy bar. Some eat the same food, they just eat a little less, 20% less, 10% less. They begin walking, they just start at 100 more steps a day. So something small that you can do, and then when that's your first step. Celebrate it, right?
Yes. Yes. And I'm going to throw a wrench right in the works, Roger.
Yes.
We talked about this. So this is Kaizen 2.0.
Yeah.
So I hear the people listening to this and they'll say, what's the small step? And when I'm coaching people, I get a laundry list of everything they want to accomplish. And if you say to them, make a small step, they're frozen because the amygdala triggered, like, I don't even know where to begin. So as a coach, we'll end up selecting one. but they're still in the back of their mind, there's all this other stuff. So there are times where, and there are different approaches for different people, where I'll sit there and write the laundry list. Tell me everything that's going on in your head. And we'll say, what's the most important right now? Your kites. And okay, let's make it smaller. And we'll narrow that one down. And I'll say, and if they're thinking ahead, say, I tell you what, okay, the next step, we know this is going to be step number 2, but we're not even going to worry about that for 2 weeks. All your goal is this one. And that's where I say, bring your supporters in, whether it's a coach, whether it's a friend, somebody who can kind of reel you back in, talk you off the ledge when you're trying to do all of it, and say, nope, we're just focusing on this. We'll do that next week or in 2 weeks.
As with most things, I have a story.
Of course.
I ran a 10K with my son. It was in the desert, so it was pretty hot. And he was like 8 years old or something. Very enthusiastic. He wanted to do the 10K. So when the gun went off to start it, he took off like a rocket. This is not realizing that this is for the long term.
Yeah.
The first step was just sort of get your body used to motion, and then as you've been running a while, then it gets better and better. So I had to catch up with him and grab him and hold him back. And basically, that's a metaphor. That's a visual of what we're really trying to do. And it's not holding you back. It's getting you focused. So I have people ask themselves, what is the smallest thing that I can do to move forward towards a goal? The smallest thing. The smallest thing. No. No, not that. The smallest thing. You're not going to brag about it or anything, but you're going to accomplish it. And then you do it again. What's the next smallest thing that I can do? And this staircase I'm talking about, it can be a staircase of 100 steps just to lose 30 pounds, But that's not only how you be successful, but also how you keep the change that you accomplish is durable, because it happens in small steps. And that's one that you keep. You can lose 30 pounds if you eat only broccoli, say, but you're not going to be able to sustain that for the rest of your life, so.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Now to me, I'm a list maker. Not everyone is, but when you're talking about even losing weight, it's kind of listing out, I want to lose weight. Here are the ways that I can do it through exercise, through diet, but get really specific and then narrow it down. Like, I'm going to eat one more serving of vegetables, or I'm going to have one less, and build on it. As a writer, I want to give a writing example because I want people to be able to leave this call and apply it to any situation. So if someone comes to me and they want to write a book, or they've wanted to write it for 10 years, but all they're seeing is book versus now, and it's overwhelming. And so I might say, all right, well, free yourself of thinking of the book. Just start listing, what would you talk about? Whether it's fiction or nonfiction, just list some things out. And then they'll say, well, I need to have an outline, right? It's like, well, we'll get there. Why don't you, what on this list seems interesting to you in this moment in your life? And they might pick one. I said, well, why don't you just do a little stream of consciousness, write about that? And if you do enough of these little tiny stream of consciousness, all of a sudden it starts making itself known. And I like using that example because you can do that with all facets of your life. Look at the end goal, and then what are all the little things you can do in between? And if you're not a list maker, maybe you're an artist, draw little sketches, scribbles, make your vision.
I totally agree. When I wrote my book, I had a lot of difficulty starting, but I remember some advice someone had given me: just sit down in front of a computer or a pad with a pen and commit to 20 minutes sitting there. Nothing may happen the first few times. You may not even write anything. You may doodle, but sit there. And again, once I began to write, that kind of started a very positive feedback. And it was still a long process. And I would have times when I hit a roadblock, as you did. But, that's the way that we get through it, just with a small thing. And, let's not forget, we've talked about weight because that's the big one. But it's the holistic lifestyle. So with your brain, just commit to do something new. It can be something really small, learning a word a day, or starting putting on makeup with the opposite side of the face, or shave with the opposite side of the face for a guy. And it's about social connection. It's about, reaching out to someone maybe who's been out, was in your life and is now out of it, or meeting someone new. Just one person, just say hi and smile more. And it could be that. And it's about gratitude, I think, for all the wonderful things that you have in your life. And that leads you to be much more open to a very positive attitude in life.
Okay, but you got to explain to people why they'd want to shave differently. That seems out of left field. I know what you mean.
Well, we get a ritual and we don't even think about it. And when we try something new, we begin to stimulate our brain to grow new pathways. And those new pathways can be redundant pathways, like if something happens and we're not able to do something. If we have built new pathways, like Jill Bolte Taylor, who had a stroke and couldn't walk or talk or anything, and knew that she had to do it in small steps, and she could grow new pathways, and she was able to grow new pathways around the dead area so that she's normally today. She does a TED Talk and wrote a great book, My Stroke of Insight, Jill Bolte Taylor. So that's why, because stimulate the brain. And you can get lost, scare yourself a little bit, get lost.
But
and
isn't that so interesting? Like, we're saying, we don't want to trigger the amygdala. So we want to take those small steps, but yet we're forcing us to be just a little uncomfortable, and it builds those brain cells, but it also builds our stress resilience. So if you just find that sweet spot between I am terrified to I'm just a little uncomfortable, and you stay in that spot a little bit, then you'll realize that your tolerance for change grows.
And setback, and just as you said, with resilience, to be able to bounce back. But it's all tied together. But relative to change, we applaud it. It's something that's we probably all need and should be thinking of our lifestyle. The needs and requirements for our lifestyle change with age. And if we're going to enjoy a healthy longevity, I think we should always be thinking about how can I enrich the physical self, or the social self, or the intellectual self, not all at once, and just a little bit, small steps. And that really makes for a very positive, confident person, and one who can not only change for the good, but, as you said, be resilient when life throws you a curveball and changes your life, like the pandemic, and you're able to bounce back.
You've been listening to Dr. Roger and Friends, The Bright Side of Longevity. If you like the show, please rate and review, and be sure to click to follow.